Spirit warriors, you ever dropped the truth so hard that folks literally couldn't recover? Like they laughed before, but they crying now? Chosen ones. Have you ever called something out so clean, so divine, so unapologetically real that the room went silent? People started avoiding you, and suddenly you became the villain in their drama? There was a woman named Danny, sweet, quiet, always watching. She had a feeling, more like a divine download, about a friend group she was in. Something just felt off. They'd make fun of her intuition, roll their eyes when she talked about energy shifts or prayer. But one night, out of nowhere, she spoke. She laid it all out. Exposed the envy, the gossip, the secret resentment. No yelling, no drama, just truth. The silence was deafening. At first they laughed, brushed her off. But weeks later, one by one, their lives started unraveling. Because when a chosen one speaks, baby, it's not just words. It's a spiritual decree. Chosen ones, you are not just observers. You are divine instruments. Your voice carries frequency. Your truth is a sword that cuts through illusions. But what happens when that sword slices too deep? When the people you called out start to spiral? What's the aftermath when the room clears out and you're left standing alone but whole? You're about to find out. Because in this video, we're diving into the 7 spiritual reasons why they can't handle you now. Why it was all jokes before, but now they can't even sleep right because of how raw you got with them. Period. Point blank. As Saint Augustine once said, truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose. It will defend itself. Spirit warriors, this video is for every chosen one who's been laughed at, mocked, pushed away, and misunderstood, just for being real, for seeing too much, for hearing what wasn't said, for saying what nobody else had the guts to say. So don't go nowhere, because by the end of this video, you'll not only understand why they spiraled, but you'll see why your calling, your truth, is the medicine this world's afraid to taste. Watch till the end, spirit warriors, because staying awake means knowing exactly why they treat you like the enemy, after you showed them the mirror. Point 1. You spoke spiritual truth into a space built on lies. The first reason they're spiraling is simple yet profound. You introduced truth into a space built entirely on illusion. And that kind of truth doesn't just whisper, it shatters. Most people don't actually crave healing. They crave the illusion of peace. They want comfort food for the soul, not bitter medicine. They wrap denial in Instagram quotes, call it positive energy, and keep tiptoeing around their trauma like it's fragile glass. But when a chosen one walks into that room, that glass doesn't just crack, it collapses. See, your presence didn't come with performance. It came with presence, realness. While others hid behind rehearsed smiles and curated personas, you showed up with divine insight. No fluff, no filters. You didn't need to yell to be heard. Your silence even made them sweat. Because you didn't come to play politics, you came to reveal. And that's unsettling to people who've spent years curating comfortable cages. They mocked you at first, not because you were wrong, but because you were right too soon. Your clarity exposed their fog. Your boldness felt like confrontation. But it wasn't ego, it was energy. Divine energy. You looked at emotional wounds they had labeled as growth and said, nope, that's still bleeding. And let's be honest, truth doesn't come with a cozy blanket. It comes with a mirror, a sharp one. That's why they're spiraling now. Because truth, once heard, can't be unheard. It echoes. It awakens. And what once brought them comfort now stings with conviction. They're starting to realize that every giggle, every side eye, every dismissive comment was a weak shield against the truth they were terrified of facing. And that truth? It's working now, inside them. But here's the divine twist. Truth hurts first, but it heals eventually. And while it may have felt like confrontation to them, it was actually surgery for the soul. That discomfort they feel now, that's the shift, that's the awakening. So don't get bitter, chosen one. Get better. You didn't come to entertain their comfort zones. You came to elevate the room. And while they sit in regret, spiraling over what you revealed, you rise. Because God doesn't just use your voice for your healing. He uses it to shift atmospheres and teach others too. Point 2. Your discernment exposed the spirit they tried to hide. Chosen ones walk into a room and don't just enter, they sense. It's not about being paranoid or judgmental. It's divine discernment, a spiritual radar that's always tuned in. While others may miss subtle cues, you detect the undercurrents. Before a word is spoken, before a smirk appears, you've already read the energy like a book you've read 100 times, that sudden shift in tone, that fake laugh, that lingering glance. You knew what it was before it even happened. You don't guess, you know, and that's what rattles people. See, gossip doesn't need volume for you to hear it. You felt the change in the atmosphere. The spirit whispered to your spirit, and suddenly the hidden conversations weren't so hidden. You weren't eavesdropping, you were discerning. Jealousy doesn't always wear a frown, sometimes it smiles with teeth. But you felt the tension behind the "I'm so happy for you," because your discernment cuts through flattery like a blade through fog. So when you spoke up, when you calmly yet powerfully called it out, that's when the unraveling began. Not because you exposed a secret, they already knew what they did, but because you revealed you saw through them, and worse, that you saw them through spirit eyes. You didn't insult them. You didn't fight dirty. You simply named what was operating in the room, and it wasn't them you addressed, it was what was using them. This is why the spiral happens. This is why they panic. Because spiritual exposure is a mirror they weren't ready to look into. The light that radiates from the chosen is not for decoration, it's for revelation. It unsettles darkness. It stirs what was content to hide. And when that divine light shines, shadows have no choice but to flee. Here's the truth. Chosen ones don't just bring presence, they bring clarity. God uses you to make people confront what they've been avoiding. That's why some run. That's why others fight. But you weren't meant to dim your light to make others comfortable. You were meant to shine so brightly that even the hidden corners get exposed. So keep glowing, keep discerning. Let them spiral if they must. Because the spirit in you never misses, and the light in you never lies. Point 3. You refused to entertain foolishness, so they lost control. They were used to playing you. They had rehearsed the script 1,000 times. Your role was always the same, agreeable, quiet, the one who took the hit with a smile. You were the easy target, the reliable backdrop to their power plays and passive-aggressive digs. They tested you with coded insults and backhanded compliments, always assuming you'd swallow it down, laugh it off, and keep the peace. That was your reputation. The nice one, the one who didn't make waves. But here's the truth. They mistook your grace for weakness. They confused your silence with ignorance. They had no idea that a storm was brewing beneath your calm surface. But something shifted. The day came when you stopped showing up for their performance, and just like that, the circus lost its star act. See, when a chosen one decides to step back, it's not out of fear, it's out of revelation. You saw them clearly. You saw the manipulation, the emotional acrobatics, the mind games designed to keep you small, and instead of fighting it, you did something far more powerful. You left. No dramatic goodbye, no long speech, just a quiet exit and a refusal to keep clapping for the clowns. And that's what unraveled them. Psychologically speaking, manipulative people thrive on emotional reactions. They feed off your energy, your confusion, your attempts to explain or please, but when you offer none of that, when you disengage entirely, they lose their grip. Research in behavioral psychology shows that narcissistic and controlling personalities experience narcissistic injury when their tactics stop working, when they are denied the attention and control they crave. And what follows is often a spiral. They panic. They scramble to make sense of your newfound strength, not because they care about you, but because they no longer have access to the version of you that served their agenda. But here's the plot twist. You didn't walk away bitter. You walked away better. You didn't need revenge, just peace. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Your growth became your shield. Now, they're left sitting in the ruins of their own performance, wondering how you saw through the script all along. And the truth? You always did. You were just waiting for the right moment to leave the stage. Point 4. You operate on kingdom time, not earthly validation. They were used to playing you. They had rehearsed the script 1,000 times. Your role was always the same. Agreeable, quiet. The one who took the hit with a smile. You were the easy target, the reliable backdrop to their power plays and passive-aggressive digs. They tested you with coded insults and backhanded compliments, always assuming you'd swallow it down, laugh it off, and keep the peace. That was your reputation. The nice one, the one who didn't make waves. But here's the truth. They mistook your grace for weakness. They confused your silence with ignorance. They had no idea that a storm was brewing beneath your calm surface. But something shifted. The day came when you stopped showing up for their performance. And just like that, the circus lost its star act. See, when a chosen one decides to step back, it's not out of fear, it's out of revelation. You saw them clearly. You saw the manipulation, the emotional acrobatics, the mind games designed to keep you small. And instead of fighting it, you did something far more powerful. You left. No dramatic goodbye, no long speech, just a quiet exit and a refusal to keep clapping for the clowns. And that's what unraveled them. Psychologically speaking, manipulative people thrive on emotional reactions. They feed off your energy, your confusion, your attempts to explain or please. But when you offer none of that, when you disengage entirely, they lose their grip. Research in behavioral psychology shows that narcissistic and controlling personalities experience narcissistic injury when their tactics stop working, when they are denied the attention and control they crave. And what follows is often a spiral. They panic. They scramble to make sense of your newfound strength, not because they care about you, but because they no longer have access to the version of you that served their agenda. But here's the plot twist. You didn't walk away bitter. You walked away better. You didn't need revenge, just peace. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Your growth became your shield. Now they're left sitting in the ruins of their own performance, wondering how you saw through the script all along. And the truth? You always did. You were just waiting for the right moment to leave the stage. Point 5. You triggered their conviction. People often confuse conviction with judgment. They assume that when they feel uncomfortable in someone's presence, they're being judged, criticized, or looked down on. But true conviction isn't loud or condemning. It's not a finger wagging in your face. It's the Spirit's whisper, gently nudging the heart, saying, "You know better." And chosen one, whether you realize it or not, you were the trigger for that quiet inner reckoning. See, your presence alone carries a frequency, an energy that stirs the dormant parts of others. You walk into a room and suddenly, people feel exposed. Not because you've said anything harsh, but because your light reveals what they've tried to keep hidden in the dark. Your authenticity confronts their pretense. Your growth reminds them of the work they've avoided. Your peace unsettles their chaos. That's not judgment, that's conviction. You didn't preach, you didn't point fingers. You simply existed in truth, and that truth became a spiritual mirror. Your voice, your vibe, even your silence, it echoed back the dreams they buried, the morals they compromised, the paths they strayed from. You represented the version of themselves they were too afraid or too prideful to become. That's why they avoid you now. It's not hatred, it's discomfort. It's the fear of facing what your energy reveals. It's easier for them to ghost you than grow. It's simpler to label you too intense, too deep, or too holy than to admit that something about you touches a nerve. You didn't shame them, but your evolution exposed their stagnation. You didn't correct them, but your alignment revealed their misalignment. This is why some people spiral when they see you. They smile with their mouths but wrestle with their spirits. They remember every word you said that they dismissed. They recall every warning you gave that they ignored. And now they're not sure how to face someone who sees straight through the mask they still wear. But don't shrink to make them comfortable. Don't water down your light to avoid triggering their shadows. You were never meant to blend in. You were sent to awaken, not with judgment, but with presence. Let them wrestle. Let them reflect. You just keep shining. That mirror, it's working. Point 6. You broke the illusion of who they pretended to be. Let's be real. Most people today are living as avatars, not as their true selves. Social media is their stage, and perfection is the script. From curated photos to polished captions, people are out here living highlight reels, not real lives. It's all about the illusion, perfect relationships, perfect skin, perfect success. But here's the truth. Behind the filters and the carefully timed posts, many are struggling to keep the mask from slipping. It's a game of make-believe, and they play it well, until someone like you walks in. Chosen ones, you're not about that life. You don't fake the funk. You don't need to. While others perform for approval, you walk in authenticity. You own your story, scars and all. Your power doesn't come from pretending to be perfect. It comes from being real. You're not afraid to be vulnerable, not afraid to stand alone, and certainly not afraid to challenge what's false. That kind of realness is rare. And because it's rare, it's also threatening to those hiding behind a facade. When you showed up fully yourself, unapologetic, grounded and honest, their fake started to crack. Why? Because realness is a mirror. And when people look into it, they see what they're not. That unsettles them. They start to question their image, their motives, their identity. And when you called it out, not even harshly, just truthfully, oh, that's when the mask shattered. The illusions couldn't hold up under the weight of your authenticity. Now they're spiraling. They can't be fake around you anymore. Your presence alone demands truth. You don't entertain drama, pretense, or ego. And that makes you a disruptor in their well-rehearsed performance. You make them uncomfortable, not because you're unkind, but because you're honest. And honesty, to the inauthentic, feels like exposure. Psychologists call this the authenticity effect, when one person's realness indirectly pressures others to examine their own behavior. It's powerful, it's disruptive, and it's needed. But don't shrink back. Let them spiral. Let them face themselves. That's between them and their conscience. Your job? Stay real. Stay rising. Keep being the reminder that authenticity still exists and that it always wins. Point 7. You activated your calling, and that's spiritual warfare. This is the big one, the turning point. The plot twist in your story where everything shifts, not because the world suddenly got easier, but because you finally stood in your truth. When you stopped watering yourself down to fit into spaces that couldn't handle your depth. When you walked away from fake smiles and silent betrayals, something powerful happened. You stopped being a background character in your own life and stepped into your divine assignment. And that, my friend, made you a serious problem to everything that thrives in shadows. See, when a chosen one starts speaking truth, it disrupts the lies people have built their comfort on. When you stop people-pleasing, you break cycles of manipulation. And when you stop dimming your light for fragile egos, you expose darkness without even trying. That's spiritual warfare in action. You didn't just grow up or glow up, you activated. Every word you speak now carries vibration, power, and purpose. Every move you make is intentional and marked with heaven's signature. That's not just poetic, it's spiritual fact. In psychology, this is known as self-actualization, the highest form of human growth, where you align with purpose. In biblical terms, it's the moment you become a vessel, anointed and dangerous to anything unholy. So yes, they're spiraling. They don't know whether to fear you, follow you, or fake like they never doubted you. But here's the thing. Your glow was never up for debate. The moment you embraced who you were truly meant to be, the enemy panicked. Because nothing terrifies darkness more than a chosen one who knows their light. So keep walking, warrior. Speak boldly. Move intentionally. You're not just living. You're leading, disrupting, and awakening. And that's exactly what you were born to do. Spirit warriors, listen to me loud and clear. They laughed when you were silent. But now that you've spoken, they're shaken. You didn't destroy them. You exposed the storm they were hiding. You didn't curse them. You blessed them with clarity. You didn't show up to cause harm. You showed up to reflect truth. And if they spiral, let them. That's their spiritual detox. You did what you were called to do. Deliver the truth. Point blank, period. Chosen ones, keep walking, keep shining. And never apologize for seeing what others deny. Because being awake is your gift, and staying awake, that's your power. So keep calling it out, because the kingdom is watching and heaven has your back. Stay awake, spirit warriors. You're not crazy. You're called.